And good morning. Welcome to our class on February 9th. And we are currently in the middle of the book called Full Devotion. And we have been discussing till now, as we got into some mystical, Kabbalistic, and spiritual matters, that the God that we're praying to, is the God that has begun the process of relating to the world, creating a world, creating people in the world, creating factors in the world, in the universe. But the essence of that God, the real essence of the God, is completely transcendent and remote. He is not needy of anything. We don't have to serve. We don't have anything to give him, to offer to him. That part of the essence of God is completely removed and separated, because that's the essence of God. The essence of God doesn't need a world, doesn't need people, doesn't need anything. There's no need for anything. He is the complete of everything, completeness of everything. But then he said that it does seem, though, that we deal with a level that is above the world anyway, transcendent of this world. Maybe not the essence of God, but transcendent of this world. And he said he pointed out that the Torah talks in third person. Those who were here yesterday were able to notice that this portion from yesterday, the portion of Tetzaveh, does talk to Moses sort of directly. And you should do this, you should do that, and that's an exception. Because regularly and God spoke to Moses. Moses' name isn't mentioned in the portion, so it talks more to the essence of Moses. That's an exception to the rule. Generally speaking, the Torah speaks to a third party. The Torah says, and God spoke to Moses. Look, either God's writing this or Moses is writing this, and yet we're talking about God speaking to Moses. It doesn't say God spoke to me. In the book of Deuteronomy, the last book of the Torah, which Moshe says on his own, so to speak, it's his words, he says, and God spoke to me. And God said to me, and then we did this, and we did that. We went here, we went there. It's telling a story. In the rest of the Torah, it's a third-party type of story. In other words, it doesn't say I, it doesn't say me, it doesn't say we, it doesn't say us. It just says, and God said this, and this happened, and that happened, even though they're talking to the people who were in front of whom this was happening. So it talks in the third party. Why does it talk in the third party? So this is where we stopped yesterday. It gets very mystical here. They'll begin in the middle of the page where it says the third entity, talking in third party. Mrs. Lou! The third entity. The explanation for this is that the third person is transcendent. The third person is transcendent means that when they talk about a third party, we learned this, we did study this last Sunday. We went through this. I'm just going to go briefly just to get back into it. When you say third party means that there's something else hidden here. So if I was sharing with you, saying that, so yesterday we went along and so now what you're doing is you're listening to my story. That means I went somewhere and I am sharing with you what I did. If I said to you the other day, someone went to Callaway Gardens and that person, then there's a third, and even though I'm talking about myself, I'm talking as if there's someone else here. There's something hidden here. I'm sort of hiding something, which is unusual. You don't talk like that when you talk to people about your experiences. So when I do talk in that manner, I'm trying to hide something. There can be times that I'll write a story in the Good Shabbos email, and I'll hide identities. I won't write if it's a he or a she. You'll never know. So it protects somebody came to talk to me. Somebody came to consult with me. I won't say, and she said, and he said, because that would be a little closer to the identity of the person. So I try to hide the identity of the person if we're talking about a private conversation that I'm not sure if that person would be willing to have it disclosed, and I'm not sure if that person would choose to talk to me if I was starting to talk about things that that person had. I would even hide the gender of that person if it's a private conversation and I feel that somebody may be compromised. And because when somebody talks to me privately, I don't share it with, it doesn't go past me at all. It doesn't even go to my wife. It doesn't go to anyone. Because that's the nature of the position that you're in. If somebody is willing to open up to you, it doesn't mean that you have a right to open up to someone else about it. It's private. There's private information involved. But if I wanted to share something from that conversation, which I felt would be beneficial to other people, usually, sometimes I would ask the person involved, but sometimes the person involved would contact me and say, "Wow, you put it very well. Thank you, for writing it up again." And nobody has to know who it is. So I'll even be careful. I'll even be careful writing it not in the right gender. I had an unbelievable experience, which I might have shared with you. I did share at some point in Auschwitz with a student who was a twin. And when I wrote up the story, I wrote it in a form of male rather than female. And they still didn't want it published. Only later, when the girl has gotten older, this is a few years ago, did she give me a name a pseudo name to be able to write the story up. But generally speaking, you're careful to disclose any kind of detailed information that may lead to somebody thinking it might be who it is or who it isn't. It's not the purpose of that article was not to say who it was. The purpose of the article was to share what was shared in private, behind closed doors. And so it's not necessary. And in fact, it might be very unnecessary to share who the person, even if it was a male or a female. Mm-hmm. All of this leads to the fact that you write it in a closed, private way. And the reader realizes that there's something private here. So when the reader says, someone came to see me, and that person said to me, how do I get over this issue, this challenge? And I shared with that person, I don't say with him or her, that this and that and the other. So I'm hiding something, and you can notice, you can feel it. I'm talking to a third party, and I'm not identifying who the person is. So when you talk in third person, so-and-so came and so-and-so said, and this one said, even though you're talking, it's God talking or Moses talking. One of the two is writing this. It's God's writing, God's dictating, Moses is writing. They're both doing it, and they're both talking about a third person. So they're hiding something here. That's what he's saying. The explanation for this is that the third person is transcendent. It transcends Moses and even transcends God's name. Havaya, that name, the great name of God, the creative name.
That's the hut minot.
Although the name Havaya, the name of God, that great name of God, the name is Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey, which we don't even pronounce. So when we want to reference it, we reference it as Havaya, Hey, Vav, Yud, Hey, instead of Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. It's a little backwards. When the word Havaya means to create. So we use that term for God's name just so we should know what we're talking about, but we shouldn't have to pronounce that name. So that although the name Havaya represents past, present, and future, for who haya, for who hoveh, for who yihiyeh, he was, he is, and will be, past, present, and future, even though that name of God contains all the letters to be read either was, is, or will be in Hebrew, it nonetheless relates to creation, because the word Havaya means to create. So even though it's past, present, and future cannot be creation, because in creation you only have, past, present, and future as one can't be the created world because it isn't as one. There is a past here, there is a present here, and there is a future here, I think. Mm-hmm. So you have the different times within the framework of the world of creation, and Havaya is past and present and future all at once. So to God, whatever happened 1,000 years ago it's happening now and it's happening tomorrow. It's all the same. We can't comprehend that. That doesn't make any sense. We live in a very limited confine where something happens, and once it happens, it's water under the bridge. You never get that water back. So even though the name Havaya represents past, present, and future, it's transcendent and in and of itself, but nonetheless relates to creation. It's the past of creation, it's the present of creation, it's the future to creation, i.e. to Hishtalshlot, to the regular, scheduled godliness coming down to this world to create the universe. The aspect that transcends both of them, there's something that transcends both Moses and the Havaya. Both the person Moses and both the God Havaya, that level of God Havaya, which is a very transcendent level, but it does relate to creation. There's something that transcends both of those. And that is the quintessence of the infinite, the essence of the infinite of God. Blessed be He. It is He who speaks and tells about the words of Havaya to Moses. That essence of God that dictates the Torah is the third party here. And God spoke to Moses. Who's saying God spoke to Moses? The essence of God is saying God spoke to Moses. The third party here is the higher level of God that is not related to creation. It is He who speaks and tells about the words of Havaya to Moses, i.e. relating to what transpires within Hishtalshlot. He is relating to something that's going on, but he's not quite in the regular manner of flow of energy of God. Okay, now that's where we stopped last week. Now we get into some deeper, juicy, Kabbalistic stuff. Atzmut, the essence of God, is specifically called third. He's not just, is he talking about what is the third party, but why would that be called the third? Why not call it the first? Why not call it no number? Why call it the third party? So Atzmut is specifically called third, as is similarly found in the following verse. If the verse is from the book of Hosea, Hosea in English, I guess. Now let's look at footnote number 52 before we even start the verse. Footnote 52, Hosea 6:2. Literally, this verse speaks of the resurrection that will occur after the coming of Mashiach. It says that 2 days refers to a revelation of Seder Hishtalshlot. That's the regular, normal way of godliness coming to this world, which is divided into two. We learned this in other places, that there was the mind and then there was the outcome of the mind. And the third day refers to the revelation of the quintessence of the infinite, as the text proceeds to explain. Okay? So, generally speaking, it's talking about the third day, meaning a whole new level that comes to this world. Obviously, when the dead are going to come back to life, we're going to be in a world that is very miraculous, very unusual. Okay, so back to the text. What does the verse say? After 2 days, He will revive us. On the third day, He will raise us up. After 2 days, He will revive us, and after the third day, He will raise us up. Reviving would mean the coming of the Mashiach. That's a revival of the Jewish people. And the raising up means the resurrection of the dead. It is known that after 2 days He will revive us refers to the totality of Hishtalshlot, which is divided into two. Hishtalshlot is the regular form of matter, of energy that comes from God. That's divided into two levels. There is the level that relates to the Hishtalshlot, and then there's the level that is above it, but still related to it. There is the level that comes in, and there's a level higher level that we can tap into while we're in this Hishtalshlot level. Here we go. Memale kol almin and sovev kol almin. Orot and kalim. Light as it stands on its own, and as is revealed to another. All right, to understand all of these, we're going to have to go through 54, 55, and 56. So let's go through them now. Mamale, sovev. That is immanence and transcendence. Immanence would mean something that's in, and transcendence means something that's above. Memale kol almin and soviv kol almin. Those are terminologies used in Kabbalah and Hasidus, especially in Hasidic teachings, all over the place. So memale kol almin, the word memale means to fill, kol all, almin worlds. Soviv means to surround, kol almin all worlds. One that fills all worlds and what surrounds all worlds. Okay, are two distinct manners by which divine energy is transmitted to creation. Memale refers to the divine energy invested within creation, which would mean anything that we see here. The trees, the plants, the people, the animals, everything. While Sovev refers to the divine energy that transcends creation. Memale Kolaman is immanent divine energy, measured and limited in accordance with that which is being animated. So that the energy that comes to anything in this world is measured to the thing that it's energizing. So the tree's energy is different than the grass's energy. We're talking here soul now, gardening energy, is different than the grass's energy. The potato's energy is different than the bird's energy. The soul that comes from God to keep the potato going versus to keep the bird going, or to keep a big wild animal going, or to keep a human going, very different than one another. Those energies all come from God, but they have different variances. There's different levels of how they are brought into this world. Memale kol almin is the energy that's in this world, that's invested in this world, he calls it. It's the energy that comes to the world and geared towards the one that it's giving energy to. So the stone is very different. The energy of the godliness of a stone is very different than the godliness of an ant. An ant can see, an ant can hear, an ant can eat, an ant can bite, an ant can sleep, an ant can do this. Stones can't do any of that. So they don't need all that energy. It's a very dormant type of energy. And lives a good life, a stone. Nobody, it gets battered and it's still there. It gets thrown and it stays there. Nothing happens to it because it can survive forever, thousands of years. In bliss, doesn't know what's flying, doesn't know what hit it, doesn't know what it hit. But of course, a stone doesn't really accomplish anything. In fact, it doesn't accomplish anything. It's just its presence is what it is. It doesn't do anything. It's what you do with it. The potato has a little bit more energy, so there is a come and a go, and there's it can do something to people. It can make people feel good if it's French fries or if it's whatever. Yeah, vodka. And a bird can do even more. It can turn things over and it can help things grow, and the things it can do a potato can't do, and a human being can do even more than a bird. I think, hopefully. If a human being takes his or her energy and uses it properly. That's how the world works. So this memale energy, it's called immanence. Immanence means it's everything has its focus, has its way of being energized. And that's the way you see it here. So a grass has this kind of energy, a tree has that kind of energy, a rose has that kind of energy, an ant has this one, a bird has that one, animals have this one, humans have that one, and stones have this one. Geared towards the item that is being energized. Measured and limited in accordance with that which is being animated. Since it is limited, it permeates all of creation and is interactive with and responsive to the subject that it enlivens. The fact that it's there towards the thing that it's giving energy to, it simply means that it's very related to the energies of the world. It comes in here, and we see it's all over the place. Because whatever you see, whatever context, whatever content of this world that we have has godliness making it go, and in different measures. So it all relates to what we see and do. By way of analogy, the life force from the soul is clothed within the body in a way that alters the body fundamentally. If you ever see somebody who just died, they change quickly, immediately. There's a change in their face immediately. And then that change will continue on the rest of the body quickly. because the soul has gone now. So the soul that comes into the body makes very big changes. The life force in the body makes very big changes. It makes things warm, it makes things move, it makes people active and responsive and so on. It is not simply a life force which enlivens any body. It is the life force of this body that which transforms it from a dead corpse into a live body. So every soul that comes into the body and changes the body around, it changes the body according to me and according to you and according to you. It's geared, the soul of each individual is geared to that individual. It's another difference in the mamale level. The mamale level is not just as a difference between a human and an animal and a stone and a plant, but there is a difference between one human and another human. Each one is a very full and whole life, which is not the case necessarily with animals. Yeah, sure, they have separate souls, they're separate entities, but they're the same. They are exactly the same. Oh, I know there's some differences. Some animals prefer the harder grass and other animals prefer softer grass. But fundamentally, though, they're the same. Human beings are fundamentally different than one another. Not one person is equal to another person. Not in looks and not in thought. So you like borscht and I can't stand borscht. And you like potatoes and french fries and I don't like potatoes and french fries. And I like dairy, you don't like dairy. You like going to the gym, and I like sitting around and lounging in front of my computer. And this one likes to study, and the other one likes to dance, and the other one likes to sleep, and the other one likes to get up, and the other one likes to wake up early, the other one likes to get up late. Everybody is different, and this one likes Democrats, this one likes Republicans. And this one is a Yankee fan, and the other ones are losers. I mean, the other ones are... Everybody has different preferences. Everybody has different ways of doing things. The animals are not fundamentally different from one another. They're all the same. But the differences are very nothing. They're very small. They're very insignificant.
Okay, question. If when the Mashiach comes and we're going to be uplifted, are we going to get our own soul back?
What do you mean by our own soul?
The dead is going to rise?
Right, dead's rise. So
is our soul that we have now going to be our soul then?
and not what? Who else should it be?
Will it be a different one? Is what?
There's
Why would
different
it be-
ones. There's a whole lot of them, but it'll come back, right?
You're here. You don't have to come back anywhere. You're here.
No, but
Those who
Other
are being
people.
resurrected. How would it be a different soul in a different body?
because it goes up and then has to come down.
But it went up from this body.
True.
But don't souls over a particular length of time occupy different
Different
bodies?
bodies.
Oh, that's what you're asking. Okay, so I wanted to
Yeah.
make sure if that what you're asking that is that the fact that there's incarnations, the reincarnation, then reincarnation, and reincarnation comes back again in different people. They're not the whole soul comes. We spoke about this in one of our Tuesday night classes. Not the whole soul comes into this world. It's only a part of the soul that is in this world. The part of the soul that's needed for that particular body comes to the soul, and that particular body's mission is to fix that part of the soul. So there's a feminine part and a masculine part and a wealthy one and a wise one and a stupid one. There's all different parts to the soul. So that part of the soul will return back to the body in which it occupied.
Okay.
So it would be the exact same person again. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the mamale level. Mamale means that it fills each place, it's geared, it's tailored towards each place it is going to. It is not simply a life force which enlivens anybody. It is the life force of this body, that which transforms it from a dead corpse into a live body. That's mamale kalamet. There's differences in the world, in the different aspects of the world, and there are differences within the people of the world as well. And each one of them is different. Soivev kol al, and that's the other level, means surrounding the world. On the other hand, that one acts in a remote, imperative, unidirectional manner. Uni means one place, solely from above to below, but not vice versa. It comes one way, and it's one energy that comes down to this world if you drag it down to this world, it's surrounding really. Surrounding meaning it's just transcendent. Surrounding means something that surrounds it, but it can't go in it because it's too high, it's too lofty. You can't put too much water into that pot because it's too small, and so the energy is too big, so it surrounds the pot, it can't really go into it. That's that same idea. Soiving, the surrounding level. An analogy. Sunlight shines into a room and illuminates it. However, the room itself is not changed thereby. The sun doesn't change the room, since the light emanates from a source outside of the room. If the sun was in your room, there would be a change, because now the sun is shining, or now the sun isn't shining. Now that the sun is not in your room, only thing comes in is the light coming from the outside. It doesn't change your room, it just lights it up. Now, of course, if you use your sun in a different manner, not for light, but for heat, it can make a difference. If you keep it long enough, it can start burning things and so on. Again, the room itself is not changed thereby, since the light emanates from a source outside of the room. It is not the room itself that lights up, but it's something that lights up the room from the outside. Even when the light illuminates the room, the walls of the room do not actually absorb the light. So as soon as you close a curtain, it's dark, finished. The light is merely there as light, an illumination from the luminary, but does not become part of that which it illuminates. It's transcendent even when it's in your room. This light that's lighting up this room right here, if I was to close a curtain here, there would be no more light at all. There wouldn't be like, oh, I have 10 minutes left of light. Unless you create something that will absorb that light is coming in and it's going out if you push it out. Similarly, the energy of soivev, the surrounding level, is of an infinite order that cannot be confined within limited creatures. It's too big, it's too high, it's too transcendent. So it's the people are very limited. This world is a limited place. It thus encompasses them in a transcending way. This is why it's called makif surrounding. It is there, but remains remote from that which it animates. Okay?
Mhm.
So that is the difference between the two energies. The one energy is a given. The mere fact that we are here and that everything else is here means that there is mamale energy. There is energy that is tailored towards whatever it is. It is the other energy that we long for, that we try to get to become in touch with when we pray, when we do a mitzvah, when we make a bracha, when we behave in the way we are told to behave. When we do the right things in this world, we are now tapping into a higher level because we are doing something higher, something spiritual, not something that, it's like the difference between existing and living. You exist by being in this world, by eating, by drinking, by sleeping, by doing things that everything does in this world. But living means that you do things that are eternal, like studying Torah, like praying. Those have eternal ramifications. And those allow us to tap into higher energies. That's why we have so many different things that we need to do. It's not just because God is sitting there and say, can they just light these Shabbos candles? I need to see some light. That's not about that. It's about lighting the Shabbos candles so that we can tap into an energy that transcends, that is higher, that we don't have as a given. Something that we can tap into if we did it. But we got to do it. That's the work. So God is saying, I'm giving you 613 opportunities to tap in. Those are 613 commandments. You can tap into this energy. You can really become energized. You can become spiritualized. You can become godlike. The more you do, the more we are involved with, the more we are engaged with. I read an article this week from a woman on Chabad.org. from a woman who was writing about the blessing that men make every morning. Blessed you, God, King of the universe, for not making me a woman.
Mhm.
And to some women who have no idea, just open up the book, will say, "Wow, that's so offensive." Typical men, that's what they'll say. The sexist religion. We are more enlightened now. We would never make a blessing like that. So this woman writes. She writes a most profound, really profound way of explaining it. And basically what she says is, the men have all these commandments to do because they need more energy. This is what we're saying over here, to connect to an energy, to connect to a switchboard that has all these different energies. So they have this opportunity to become very spiritualized, more than the women do, it seems. But the fact that God says women don't do this, don't put on tefillin, and don't have to pray all the prayers, and don't have to do all of these things, means that their energy is human beings. God is not a man or a woman, so he doesn't have a preference. If anything, he prefer the women, right? So it's not a preference. It's that how to tailor the energy. It's this mamali energy, how to get each one to fulfill their goal, their mission. So he's given the women a very important, active role in this world, and that role is different than running around, putting on tefillin and doing all these mitzvahs that the men have to do. So by saying thank God for not making me a woman, it means thank God for not giving me those responsibilities that are women-like responsibilities, because if I had that, I would have a much more difficult life. It's just the opposite. That's the meaning of this blessing. And that's because everyone has their mission, everyone has their goal to get in touch with the higher transcendent levels. And for men, that takes on a very detailed, much more heavily running around all over the place to keep them occupied. Where women can be focused on one or two things which are fundamental in this world, and they have a much more of a connection to God that way, within that framework, within that field. Okay. 56. The footnote 56. Light as it stands on its own, and light as it is revealed to another, is an even higher division of Seder Hishtalshalut into two distinct categories. This light as it stands on its own, and light as it is revealed. Light on its own would mean the essence of light, and then as it's revealed is what comes out of the light. So this is an analogy to an even higher level within this Seder Hishtalshalut, the normal order of things. The aforementioned distinctions, which are Mamale and Sovev, and Orot and Kalim. Mamale, of course, means the tailored energy. Sovev, the transcendent energy. Orot means light. Kalim are the vessels for the light. Those terms are all within the realm of light that is revealed to another. It's in the realm of light, how light is revealed to another. Since they are all forms of outward revelation for the sake of the existence of the worlds. So what he's saying over here is, ultimately, the purpose of light is to be revelation, to reveal, to light up, to illuminate. So when you say light, I have a light here. A light means I can light up something. I can share energy that lights up something. It gives light to something, and it's a revelation. The difference between light as it stands on its own and light that is revealed to another can be understood by the analogy of an idea as it is understood by the mind and as it is conveyed to another. There's an idea that you have in your mind, and that's the idea that you try to share with someone else. Even when a person thoroughly understands a concept, he must still recognize it in his mind in order to convey it effectively to a second person. I'll get to it in a second. Similarly, light as it stands on its own is infinite, and it is not defined and organized like the more limited light that is to be revealed to another. It happens to me basically almost every week. I'm trying to get this good Shabbos. I got a story that I want to talk about, and I want to somehow connect it to the thought connected to the portion. Now, sometimes I said to myself, this story I cannot use. It doesn't fit. And then I said, but I don't have any other story for this week, so it has to fit. It must fit somewhere.
So you'll make it fit.
Well, you have it every week. It's available to you. So for that though, I have to really, really think, and I have to go through every single detail of the story, of the thing. I have to spend a lot of time, and sometimes I'm traipsing back and forth in this house. I'm walking up and down, and I'm thinking. And it could be in the middle of the night, or it could be in the middle of the day. I have to get this thought to develop. It happened to me this past week. And all of a sudden, I said, yes, got it. It happened. I found it. But then to sit down and write it, I had to start thinking all over again. Because then I had to make this, I understood it, but now I had to make it fit. I had to connect all the strings to one another. And that is the work of writing. So, and there's a difference between how you think and how you speak, and then a whole other world of how you write. They're very, very different in the way things are written and the way things are spoken. If somebody was to take a transcript of what we say over here, you wouldn't be able to make any sense of it. I'm not sure if you can make sense of it. Even as I speak, I wish I would be more sensible. But certainly if you would read the transcript, it would make no sense to you. I did this when we worked with the Rebbe's Torah. So when the Rebbe spoke on a weekday, somebody would sit down and transcribe the entire presentation on paper. It could be 50, 60, 70 pages if it was one of these long ones. It was an intermittent with songs and everything else. It wasn't like one long 4-hour speech, but it had different things. But when you read it, you said, what is he saying here? Like, what is he trying to say? And then you had to read it again and think about it properly. In order to write, you kept the outline of his words, but sometimes you had to add some words of connection or words of explanation into his words because he spoke them and he didn't write them. And the Rebbe said, unlike the other Lubavitch Rebbes that preceded him, they wrote their thing. Whatever they spoke, they also wrote it down. He never wrote down something. He edited tens of thousands of pages, but he never quite wrote the essay from beginning to end. He didn't have the time for that. For that, you need mind, and the Rebbe was trying to run this world. So other people did that. He gave that to other people, but he instructed the people, the workers, in this realm. He said clearly, don't think that all my words are holy, therefore you have to write the way I say it. The purpose of writing something is that other people should be able to understand. Can you use the other thing, please? You could add or subtract or play with the words. In fact, he criticized. Sometimes he would send out and say, "Why did you have to write it the way I said it?" He would be unhappy with that. Why? Because when you take a transcript of what you said, you make a speech, give a sermon, and you try to write it down verbatim, nobody's going to understand what you're saying.
What happened to those transcripts
Which transcripts?
from the Rebbe?
Which ones are you talking about? The ones that we wrote?
Yeah.
They're in my office, bound in books.
Wow.
I'm bound up in books of all the years that he was talking. They were published eventually. Some weren't, and that's what they now. In these days, last 20 years since Rebbe passed away, they've been working very hard in recovering as much as they could from different people who wrote things to friends and to family and whatever. After Shabbos, somebody would write a few paragraphs as what happened today. They may not be existent anywhere else, only in that personal. But generally speaking, they had the majority of the work, about 85% of it was available, either on tape or on some kind of manner of transcript. And there's some stuff still out there that hasn't been recovered yet from the early 60s and early 70s. Was a little bit of a chaos day. It wasn't an organized fashion. But the bottom line is, there's a big difference between the way things are conveyed in speech and the way things are conveyed in writing. And there's the world of trust me, it's a world of this. And from the way you think. When you come up with an idea, first you have to come up with it. Then it has to start making sense in your mind. Then it can only make sense on paper. If you don't have it in your mind properly, That's what's happened sometimes to me. I'm in the middle of writing something. I say, wait a minute, this is not right. It's just not working. I have to stand up and I start walking around in the middle of writing as well to rethink the whole thing. Sometimes I have to rewrite the whole thing. It's the world of writing. It gets dark sometimes. Now you know why sometimes it's very late, because my mind isn't clear, it hasn't worked, or I'm falling asleep, or something else is on my head. I got a complaint last night from Rabbi Rose, a good friend of mine in Johannesburg. He says, why are you sending this stuff out? By the time I get this email, it's already hours into Shabbos, and I would like to borrow your thought and use it for my sermon.
Well, he's lucky he's open for this week already.
Yeah, well,
Well, next week you won't work.
No.
Oh, that's right.
Next year. Next year.
That's a good compliment.
Well,
I said-
we have the archive in our
Also true.
in our website, so.
I said to him, I wrote back and I said, while I take your words as a compliment, I also take them as a kick in my pants. Get it moving, yeah. All right, so that's what the idea, when you think something versus when you try to transmit it, you've got to get it straight. That's the light. Within your head, it's the light, the essence of the light. Once you start revealing it, it's the revelation of the light. It's more limited. You don't give necessarily all of the thoughts that went into the process, that went into your mind or your conclusion. You're going to give something that people can understand. That's it. So it's limited, but it's more clear, more revealed. However, even the light as it stands on its own is a form of divine expression and not part of God's essence. Light is a revelation. It's an eminence. It's something that comes out. It's not the essence of God. This light is therefore part of the two in the verse. There's two. He says on the second day, then the third day. Those two that comprise Hishtalshalut, or regular order of things, as opposed to the third aspect that represents the essence of God. Okay. So we're back to in the text. On the third day refers to the revelation of the quintessence of the infinite, blessed be He. We're now explaining why 3 is in a third party, but we will get into this next week. We'll get back to this. The concept of 3 is really beautiful. So bring your friends next week as well.